Good evening, folks. Thank you for joining me tonight. This is Bill Breeden, and welcome to Constellation Tour number 70. Tonight we're going to go over the constellation Era, or the Altar. Era is located in the southern celestial hemisphere, just south of Scorpius, so basically just underneath the stinger of Scorpius. Era is best seen between June and August each year. So we've got Stellarium set up here for July the 28th, 2021 at about 10:20 p.m. Now, Era can be seen just the northern part of it from mid-northern latitudes, although it'll be right on the horizon. So to make it a little easier, we've ventured a little further south down to Mexico City, and we're going to be a little bit outside the city so that we have more of a suburban sky here. So I'm simulating moderate light pollution. So let's get started. How do we find the constellation Era? This is not a real well-known constellation, but it is interesting. So let's first start out. Let's start out just finding it. We're looking south from Mexico City, and if you're looking south from mid-northern latitudes, the sky's going to look more maybe like that. Here's Scorpius here. You can see the J shape with Antares here, the red star Antares, and the stinger of the scorpion here, and the claws here. But as you go farther south, perhaps from Miami, you can see just a little bit beneath the stinger of Scorpius. And from where we are here in Mexico City, you can see a lot more sky here below the stinger of Scorpius. And this is the region of sky where you'll find Era, the altar. It really is as simple as that. Just look for the stinger here of Scorpius and look at the area of sky just below. And these stars here make up Era, the altar. So let's turn on our constellation lines. And you can see here's Scorpius here, and here's the teapot of Sagittarius. And just below the stinger of Scorpius, you'll find the stars here of Era, the altar. Now, there are no real bright stars in Era, but we do have several that look to be about third magnitude, like this one here. Here's Alpha, and that's magnitude 2.8. Then you have Beta here, 2.8, and Zeta Era, magnitude 3.1. So you got a scattering of third and fourth magnitude stars here. Here's Epsilon 1 Era, and Gamma Era, and Delta Era, and these are closer to fourth magnitude. So this little gathering here of third and fourth magnitude stars beneath the stinger of Scorpius constitute the constellation Era. Let's turn on our boundaries, and you can see that Era is this part of the sky here outlined just below Scorpius, and it's wedged between Telescopium and Norma. So there are no real bright stars in Era, and there are no Messier objects. So let's venture to a dark site and take a look at the stars of Era. And you can see the rift of the Milky Way here is just absolutely gorgeous here, and you've got it going right through the stinger part of Scorpius. And as you drop below the stinger, you have these stars here, partially in the rift of the Milky Way, that make up the constellation Era. Now it looked like one of them was a double star. It was Epsilon 1. Let's see if we can find that one back. There's Beta, there's Zeta, there's Epsilon 1 and Epsilon 2. So this looks like a nice double star we can go for. So let's take a look at Epsilon 1 and 2 in Era through the Finder. And what I do is I have Stellarium show us about a 6-degree true field of view, which simulates the view through a finder scope or a pair of binoculars. And you can see that Epsilon 1 Era and Epsilon 2 would easily fit within the field of view of a finder scope. In fact, they're about a degree apart. This inner red circle here represents half a degree. So if we put Epsilon 1 right on the edge, Epsilon 2 is pretty much right next to the other edge. So they're actually more like a half a degree apart. This next red circle is 2 degrees across, and then the outer one is 4 degrees across. So you have the red circles of a Telrad, half a degree in diameter, 2 degrees in diameter, and then finally 4 degrees in diameter. And out to about here, where I'm encircling with the arrow, that's about 6 degrees, and that is about what you would see through binoculars or a finder scope. So Epsilon 1 is 360 light years away, and Epsilon 2 is only 85 light years away, and it's shining at magnitude 5.4, so it's a little fainter than Epsilon 1. It's a nice double. I did not have that on my list. I just saw it there on the chart and thought it'd be a good target. So this one must not be on the Astronomical League's double star list, but it should be. It's really nice. Okay, we go back to a naked eye view here, and let's go over finding it again. Here's Antares in Scorpius, and here's the J shape of the Stinger, and then you just drop below that and you see the stars of Era, the Altar. Now there are no Messier objects in Era, but there are a couple of interesting NGC objects, so let's go for NGC 6193. And this is an open cluster of magnitude 5.2. And it looks like there's an interesting nebula in this area. Let's see, this is also on the Caldwell list. It's Caldwell 82, probably below the horizon for mid-northern latitudes. So if you get a chance to venture down to southern Florida or even further south, can probably catch this, but from mid-northern latitudes, it's probably either on the horizon or just below it. So through a low-power 24-millimeter eyepiece, here's a view of Caldwell 82 or NGC 6193 open cluster, and you can see there's some nebulosity there in the background. Very nice. Yeah, this is actually pretty high up within Era. So this particular open cluster might just be visible from mid-northern latitudes if you catch it at the right time each year. And it looks like here, this is July 28th that I'm simulating here, and it looks like it's right on the meridian. So late July would be the time to look for it. Okay, I have a globular cluster here also within ERA, NGC 6397. And this is also on the Caldwell list as Caldwell 86. It's a 5th magnitude globular cluster located 7,100 light years from Earth. This appears to be around the middle area of ERA, so a little bit difficult to catch from northern latitudes. You probably do have to get a little bit further south to catch this one above the horizon. It has a declination of minus 53 degrees. So that would imply that you would have to be at no higher up than 47. No, that's not right, is it? 37. 37 degrees in north latitude to catch this, and St. Louis is at 38. So this is permanently below my horizon. So my horizon must be about where my arrow is, right about there. So this is just below it. Rats. Which explains why I've never seen it. So here's globular cluster NGC 6397 through the finder. And then through a low power 24 millimeter panoptic eyepiece. Wow. Let's have a look at it through a little bit more power here. I put a 19 millimeter eyepiece on it. Very nice. Now, I don't have any other objects on my list tonight to search for within ERA, so this would be a good time to show you how to use Stellarium as a star chart. Right now we're using it as a planetarium program, but to use it as a star chart, I usually would turn on my constellation names and constellation boundaries, zoom in a little bit, and then go over to sky and viewing options and turn on deep sky objects, labels, and move this out of the way, and then slide them a little bit further over so you start seeing more objects populating. You don't want to overdo it because it becomes overwhelming. So about there, that's good. And we can close that window. So now we have a star chart that we can use. And we already looked at NGC 6397 and NGC 6193 right here. But here's a new one here, IC 4651. So let's have a look at that. Now, some of these won't be, you won't have an image in Stellarium. You'll only have the icon plotted. So this is an example of an icon plot. Now, this is an open cluster, so it's very possible that all these stars here that Stellarium is showing you, that is the open cluster. But there may actually be more to it that you could see through an eyepiece. And without an actual image here in the database, the only way to know for sure is to go out and observe it. So that leaves me out. This is too far south, so I have to just Google it. Okay. So let's go back to our star chart here and see if there's something else that looks interesting. See, NGC 6352, that looks like the symbol for a planetary nebula. That could be interesting. So let's have a closer look at that. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the symbol for a globular star cluster. I knew that. I don't know what I was thinking. Planetary nebula has this square symbol that you see over here. And that's actually just a nebula. I think a planetary nebula is a circle here. Yeah, that's right. A little rusty. So let's have a look at this globular cluster NGC 6352. and see if an image of it is displayed within Stellarium, and it is. This is a smaller globular cluster of 9th magnitude, located 19,500 light years from Earth. And it looks like a smaller one, so it needs a little bit more power. So let's go with a 9mm eyepiece. Okay. So that's how you use Stellarium as a star chart. It helps to learn what the symbols mean. I'm a little rusty. So it looks like this symbol here is an open cluster. This is a globular cluster. The square is a nebula, like a bright nebula, or a reflection nebula. And then this symbol here, a circle with the 4 lines sticking out of it, is a planetary nebula. So I had to get that straight. So after using it as a star chart, we can return to using it as planetarium software. Let's go back to naked eye view, which is a 60-degree field of view. Turn off our constellation lines and go into viewing options and turn off labels and markers. And now we have planetarium mode back, simulating the actual night sky. So I don't have any other objects to look for tonight, so I appreciate you hanging out with me to do some stargazing this evening. Good night and good seeing.